Welcome to part two of this kind of mini series that I'm doing about the hidden tax of being blind. And in part one that I did yesterday, we talked about the hidden tax of time. And I gave a couple examples, including transportation, including the kind of necessary steps to use technology, and the time it takes to kind of learn visual concepts and kind of interface with the world that just comes with being blind. Today, I wanted to talk about the hidden tax that is a lot more analogous or relevant to the word tax, and that is money. This one is going to be a little bit complicated, but I figure what I'll do to start is I'm going to show you some objects, explain to you what they do, talk about the equivalent, right, for non-disabled people, and kind of talk about the fact that there are some big issues with the way that money and disability intermingle, quite frankly, in ways that are not only really unhealthy, but potentially incredibly harmful to the disability community and to just being a human person in the world. So, when we talk about money and things costing more, one of the biggest things is just your ability to navigate. So I'm going to switch between things that are inside and outside of my backpack. So I'm going to bend down underneath here and unzip my backpack and grab out the first relevant item here. And this is the cane pouch from Fieldom, which we're not actually talking about the cane pouch, we're just talking about a white cane. Now, I need a white cane. It is a non-negotiable for me being able to function as an independent member of society because, number one, it allows other people to see that I can't see, right? It's an identifier. Number two, and arguably more important for my survival, is that it allows me to navigate my environment without the use of vision. I use a combination of the cane and orientation, mobility, traveling skills to get around, and canes are not cheap, okay? A cane like this, which is a cane made of carbon fiber, has a metal glide tip, and just a plastic handle and this cheap little silly rope thing, like $40, okay? I'm gonna round a little bit for the benefit. I think they tend to run between like 35 and 40. Might even be slightly more than that now, but $40 for this. Now, I'm gonna collapse it here and I will rest it against my shoulder for a minute while we discuss. Now, $40 might not seem like that big of a deal for something, you'd pay that much for a pair of shoes, right? That's something that you need to walk around and get where you're going and all that good stuff. But here's the thing, canes break, okay? I have lost canes to buses. Someone leans their seat back too far and I have my cane out, boom, gone. Car doors are the killer of many canes. You slam the cane, and especially in a cane like this, which tapers to a thinner and thinner point. So when you get down to just near the tip of this particular cane, you've got something that is maybe slightly wider than your average pen or pencil, and it snaps really easily, okay? And so you have to replace them fairly often, depending on how much intensive travel I'm doing. Collapse the cane now and put it back in its case. Depending on how much intensive going on I have, right? I could go through a few canes in a couple of months. I could go through, 2 in a year. I could go through, sometimes one every 2 or 3 weeks, or you have them break back to back on you. So they're expensive. They're not cheap, and I need them, right? And when it comes to disability, I think I have it bad with canes, but man, power wheelchairs, insulin, right? The EpiPens, there are so many things that are so much more expensive and arguably more detrimental for someone not to have. But this is a really, really prevalent example in my life. So here's another one. This is a little emergency, oh no, all my canes are broken cane. It's not particularly well designed. It's kind of it's supposed to fit in a purse, I guess is the idea, but it doesn't even hold collapsed. There's no magnet or a fixture. and so it just starts uncollapsing. But this guy will run you probably about $30, and it's frustrating because it's like, this is my, oh no, I am out of options option. And, you know, when I have this cane as well as the one that I just showcased, I am now holding approximately, we'll call it $50, even on the conservative side, worth of objects. Now, believe it or not, as I beat my tripod up, that was the low bar, right? That was the starting point for this video. And the reason I wanted to start here is because for me, these are non-negotiables. I will not leave my house if I don't have a cane. I'm not comfortable independently traveling or conducting myself without one. I'm going to put these guys back in the case. Now, the second part of this, and something that I've talked about in other videos, are accessories and doodads that are specifically designed for the blind. And you might think I'm going to bring up Field'em, but because, see, that's what happens when the cane just flies out of the case. Field'em, I think, is a counterexample because their products are well designed and they're designed with purpose. And they are supported. So we're going to switch to out of my backpack. I'm going to put these back in there so I don't lose them. So I actually have a primary cane that I use, and both of these canes, I'm fortunate, as I beat my tripod up again, I'm fortunate to have backups. So those are both backup canes for me at the moment. Hope you're enjoying the free ride on the tripod. Okay, now we get to the crazy stuff. And before we do, one of the things that is another non-negotiable in the same way that cane travel is a non-negotiable is the ability to interface with the world from a technological perspective. And especially when you are an independent working person, right? Technology in the time that we live in is so incredibly important. And I'm lucky on this front because I have access to the funds and the support through some not loopholes, but some interesting means of acquiring that are rather cumbersome, but I have access to them where others do not, okay? Now, what I want to talk about is computers. Now, I'm going to go back into the backpack for just a moment before I show the one that I have next to me right now, and you'll see why in a moment. So I'm going to show you 3 different devices here, okay? The first is the most non-disabled familiar thing that you will see in this video, and that is this. I am holding in front of me a Apple. This is a MacBook Pro, 13-inch laptop, and roughly retails for about $1,000, maybe about $1,100, okay? Now, out of the box, this computer contains a lot of features that allow me to access things without using vision. There are screen readers built in. There's one that Apple has in particular called VoiceOver, and that allows me to kind of navigate a lot of things. So I'm not going to show you anything here.
Authentication. Application authentication. Log show all users. Log in Chris Flores. Show 2 items.
So I can use this computer, right, to navigate all sorts of things.
Password application. Login. System dialog. Thursday, February 19. Chris Flores. Touch ID or enter password.
Okay, so you can hear it talk to me. I can do that for all sorts of stuff. This is not a tech video, but for about $1,000 out of the box, I get something that allows me to be on very roughly an equal playing field or close to in terms of navigating the internet, managing files, doing all the things that you do on a laptop. Now, here's where this gets fun. This guy, again, I'm gonna round up even, okay? $1,100 is what we're gonna call this laptop, all right? So we've moved up the price train fairly drastically from a $20, $30 cane to an $1,100 laptop, but we're not even to the fun stuff yet. Now, we come to, I've done a review for this on the channel, but this is called the Chameleon 20. This is a refreshable braille display, okay? And what this little dude does is using small pins, it pops up Braille dots. I don't know how well it's going to show on camera because this is not a tech video, but I can navigate documents and files and type in Braille on this device. Now, essentially, I've told people when they've asked, like, what is that thing that you use at work all the time? It's essentially the Braille equivalent of like a Palm Pilot or a very, very basic computer. So if I hop into the menus on this dude, and we're gonna think about, again, the MacBook that I just showed you, where I can get apps from all over the world, I can connect it to, all sorts of different things, just all the possibilities you have with a laptop. Now, comparatively, on the Chameleon, I can edit files, but only in about 2 file types. I can export files for sighted people's use in 1 file type, okay? I can connect this to a computer or a phone and kind of use it as a display. I can read books on it. I can create and manage files and folders. I can do very, very basic calculator functions, change a few settings, learn the date and time, look at a couple of online services, most of which revolve around updating the machine's software, and I can look at a user guide. Now, that seems really, really limiting. So you'd think maybe this thing would cost about $100, be something that comparatively to the laptop, you are paying for, the ability to access things in Braille, but, taking into account what this thing can do, it may cost less, and you would be backwards. This machine retails for about $1,700 US. It's almost $2,000. And when you add in the case that I talked about during my review, you get to about $1,950 US dollars. So almost $2,000 for this machine with its functions such as they are. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm saying that in terms of price and what this thing is capable of, as compared to the MacBook, if you can only get one device and you need the access to the most things, you are probably better off picking up a MacBook for less money that does more things. If you thought that a $1,700, this is called a note taker, a $1,700 note taker was insane, which I do, prepare yourselves. Boom, beat the tripod up again. All right, so story time. You could literally add up the cost of everything that I have showed you. So the Canes will call $50, right? The Chameleon and its case will call about $1,900. So we'll round up and call that $2,000 just for fun, okay? We add $1,100 for the MacBook, so we're at $3,100, assuming I can tolerably do math. We can almost double that for the next thing I'm going to show you. And this thing doesn't work. Meet the Braille Sense U2. Now you're probably saying this thing looks a lot like the last thing you just showed us, but it's bigger and bulkier, and that is accurate. Here's the fun part. It doesn't work. And it is no longer supported by the very company that put it into the world. And this is where the first point that I want to get to in terms of money and disability comes into play. Now, I'm fortunate in that I work a job wherein my income allows me, on occasion and with planning, to pick up various assistive technology pieces as I need them. And if that doesn't happen, I have the ability to make requests for money that I have in my benefit that my grandfather set aside for me in order to pick up things that might really enhance my life. Now, this Braille Sense I got when I was in college as a way for me to take notes during my classes in Braille so that I could interface with the technology I had, in a way that was accessible to me and allowed me to keep up in college. And I appreciated that. And I had this for, the 4 years that I spent in college and the time afterwards that I tried to kind of figure out what I was going to do with my life. and then it just kind of stopped working and stopped being supported by its parent company, Hims. And where this gets really frustrating is this dude costed in about 2016 or so when I got it, $6,000. I did not pay for this. I would not have had the ability at, 17 years old as I was getting ready for college to, even have that amount of money, let alone spend it on something like this. And to have a device like that not even be supported. So now, essentially, this thing's a paperweight. I may look at doing some other troubleshooting, see if I can get it back up and running in any form or fashion again. But mostly I keep it to demonstrate this very point when I do things like talks and presentations. Because when you're disabled, the world exists in ways that are not always accessible to you. And so your lifelong battle becomes, what can I do? What can I buy? What can I utilize every single day that will inch me closer to being equal to the people around me? Not better. I don't want to be superior, but I need to walk in a space and exist on the same playing field as everybody else. And so to do that, I need something that is going to enhance my life, that's going to give me access to things, that's going to do it in a way that's relatively speaking affordable. And you know what? In the position that I'm personally in, I'm willing to pay a little bit extra for that because I know that it takes time to develop a system of refreshable Braille because the average sighted person doesn't need it, right? So it's kind of specialized in that it's only developed for blind people who are Braille readers, okay? Fair enough, I'll pay a little more for that. I think that's tolerable. But when you talk about assistive technology, one of the things that people often don't talk about is the overinflation of prices and the subsequent lack of support on products in just a couple of years. So had I paid $6,000 for the Braille Sense, I would be livid. I'm still livid, and I didn't even pay for it because it's a device that I should be able to use for my entire life for that price. Think about going out and paying $6,000 for a computer. And one day it just turns off, doesn't turn back on, and when you call the company to get support, they just go, nope, sorry, we're not helping you with that anymore. No reason, just it's no longer supported. Sorry about you, right? Would there not be rioting in the streets? But because we're disabled, we're expected to put up with it. We're expected to go shell out money for the Chameleon, right? Or a MacBook, or something else that's bound to be, more supported for longer. And it's on you as the disabled person then to do your own research and figure out, what you're gonna do to make things better for yourself. And what I have found is that takes time and effort and research and asking questions and networking with other people to make sure that you don't get scammed out of money, especially when you're, working. Let alone folks who are on more limited incomes and don't have the ability to go spend $1,000 on an assistive technology device or a new phone or a computer. And it's here that when I talk about the hidden tax in terms of money, it's not just technology. It's everyday devices like white canes. And, for me, that's the primary example. I'm not saying it's the only thing. But there are adaptive kitchen devices that cost extra. There are adaptive appliances that cost double, if not more, what the non-adaptive alternative costs. And yes, sometimes there are grants or there are programs that can help with these things, but when you are gainfully employed, you're often ineligible for these programs, and so it becomes a battle of how do I make this work well enough for me, using the money, the resources, and the access to things that I have to make it the best it can be under the circumstances. Not what is the best it could be, it's what is the best I can make it for myself with what I have and the money I have. And that becomes a limiting factor really fast. And I wanted to bring some attention to that through some examples that I thought would be understandable to the average person, which is why I showed the canes because they're important to me, but I showed the technology because I think it's palatable. I hope this made sense. Please do your own research. Please look into things. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them as much as I can, but these things add up. Imagine doing this for years and the amount of money that you would spend. You know, there's a $500 cane that exists that apparently has a built-in proximity sensor that's supposed to alert you of like objects up by your head, which like sounds like a great idea. You know how many trees I've smacked my head on, or posts or signs that are badly placed, right? And the other feature this cane boasts is like a little GPS that's built in. You know what else has a GPS built in? My phone, right? And I'm fortunate to have access to that. But my point is, we should be targeting development of resources to things that blind people actually need. What if you sold that proximity sensor as its own product that could attach to any cane, and then maybe I have access to that through something I wear on my wrist, or a pair of headphones, or auditory signals on the cane. There's so many possibilities, but nobody asked us. It was just this, here's this revolutionary brand new product made for you, and it was like, I don't want that. But it's the only option I have, so maybe it's worth looking into. And then people buy it, and they're upset that it doesn't work, and or it gets unsupported, or it gets rained on, or it stops working, and you're just out $500, or $1,700, or $6,000. And that's not all of the things that apply to the hidden tax of being blind, which is money. Again, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those down below. Thank you so much for watching. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and we'll see you soon. Peace.